Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Vivs here from Slide Nerd. Today, it's time to talk about the Recycler View. I know how long you've been waiting for this, and if you're thinking the Recycler View is a replacement for the List View, I'm sorry, that's not the way it works. The Recycler View is far superior than your normal List View. It can look like this. You can also make it look like this. This is basically what you guys used to do with a grid view, remember? Or you can make it look like this, which is also called a staggered grid in terms of the recycler view. And we will take a look at how the appearance of items is controlled with the help of something called layout managers in the recycler view. But for now, this is the architecture of the recycler view. If this diagram looks weird to you, let's go back here in the image and take a look. As you can see, alley corners, brunch this weekend, I'll be in your neighborhood, blah blah blah. This is one single item inside your recycler view. And it has a special layout which you guys always define in your XML layout file. Remember, if you go back here and you take a look at the architecture, the data model represents the one single item that you just saw now over here. The adapter is going to pull all the single items and it's going to try to make an appearance out of them using the view folder out here. Now the view folder is basically nothing but the XML layout for this one single item converted or inflated into Java code, and then the view folder is going to maintain whether the data item is going to be inflated every time or not. And we will talk about that optimization in a bit. In my earlier videos on the list view, I've already talked about the optimization of 150% and 175% where I had explained this, and of course I'll get to that in a minute. But the recycler view is basically going to use the view folder to display each and every single item or every single row inside it. Now other than that, there are three other items over here. The layout manager, which I told you basically allows you to customize how the items are placed, one below each other like this, or one near each other adjacent in the form of a grid, or something totally random like a grid but not having a fixed size for each item, which is basically called a staggered grid over here. Now the item animator is going to let you do animations on your recycler view. When you were using the list view previously, animating things was pretty tricky and hard because you were inside the get view method where you had to decide a lot of things. But the item animator is not like that. It can let you animate things when the items are added, items are removed. You want to swipe the items, you want to make them disappear, you want to have collapse the list view, the recycler view. It can all be done with your item animator here. And there's ultimately your item decorator, which is basically stuff like sectioning your list view or recycler view into different sections. Oops, I keep using the word list view all the time, don't I? I got so used to the list view that saying recycler view is getting pretty hard for me. I don't know about you. So now let's take a look at how we can use this in our code. So switching back to Android Studio, at this point if you open our emulator from our previous video, you will notice that there's our Play Lollipop and our Lollipop one. Open the navigation drawer, there's nothing great inside it. We are going to put the recycler view over here, right below this image view that we have. And to do that, we need to use a support library. So just go here and have this Gradle dependency added for putting a recycler view. At this point, your job is to rebuild the project. You simply go up at the top, build, and you say rebuild project, and Gradle is going to run this dependency and ensure that the recycler view is included inside your code. So at this point, I have simply modified the compile dependency we have by adding a 21.0 point plus here to ensure that any sub build can support the recycler view. Now let's go back to our app inside our source, main, and res layout. And the layout that we need to go inside is our fragment navigation drawer. We can go directly here and we want to add our recycler view inside this. So currently this is what we have. So going below our image view or this layout, linear layout, which I have in code, if you go to text here, there's a linear layout inside which there is an image view. Now right below this linear layout is where I'm going to add our recycler view. But before I do that, what I have at the top is a frame layout. I don't want that. What I want is a relative layout here. So let me switch it to relative layout at both places. I will also give this linear layout an ID so that I can have the recycler view below it. I'll simply call it container layout, something like that. So now adding our recycler view is pretty simple. And as you guys can see, it says support v7 widget recycler view. So just click over that and you gotta open and close the tags out there. And now you need to specify the compulsory attribute. All you gotta do is add those attributes for the width and the height out here. So we can simply say layout width. make it match parent. Layout height, I'm gonna call it wrap content here. So at this point, press Ctrl Alt L and just rearrange your inputs, and there is your recycler view. If you go to the design right now, it says the following classes could not be instantiated, support v7 widget, recycler view. Let's take a look at that. Now the reason for this error is two things. One, at the time of making this video, Android Studio does not support rendering a recycler view on the screen. And two, your recycler view doesn't have a fixed appearance like your list view does. In fact, you have to go to code and set the appearance with the layout manager stuff that I was talking about, where you can control how the recycler view items are laid out. And hence we need to go to code first, and we need to do that. So if you go to the text tab here, we can give this an ID saying drawer list or something like that. Now we go back inside our code, inside Java here, navigation drawer fragment. Now this is the place where we are going to have our recycler view. So I'm going to simply make a variable here saying private recycler view. There you go. Make sure that it is the Android support v7 widgets recycler view that comes in over here, and you can call it whatever you want. I'll simply call it recycler view for now. Inside the onCreateView method, this is where we need to perform the inflate statement. Now right now there is just a return inflator.inflate blah blah blah. Let's separate that into two statements. We say view layout equals to this little thing here, and return the layout file at the bottom over there. Now we can go here inside the onCreateView method, and we can say recyclerView ID that we gave over there in the XML. Just hit Alt Enter, perform the typecasting, make sure it supports v7 here again. And at this point, the next step that we need to do is to actually set the layout manager for our recycler view. But before we do that, let's take a look at what the recycler view actually is in the documentation. So at this point, we go straight to the documentation for the recycler view on developer.android.com. And if you take a look at that, it extends from view group. That's the first difference, which is a massive difference for me. It's not even apps list view. If you guys remember the list view class, it had a lot of super classes out there, but this is directly extending from a layout instead of a list. Why is that so? Take a look at the definition here. The first line, which says a flexible view for providing a limited window into a large data set. It doesn't specify anything about how the items are going to be arranged, which is why I mentioned earlier that the recycler view is far more flexible and bigger than the list view is. So here, if you take a look at the adapter, there are certain glossary of terms they have given. The adapter, this is a subclass of the recycler view.adapter responsible for providing views that represent items in a data set. So you have the data, you arrange the data into an array or something like that. The adapter is going to take up that array. It's going to decide what part or how many items to show on the screen at a given time and work out strategies like that behind the screen. There's position, that is the position of the data item within an adapter. Then there's the index, there's the index of the attached child view used to call getChildAt, contrast with position. Binding, this is the process of preparing a child view to display data corresponding to a position within the adapter. Now, other than that, there is a recycle, there's a scrap, and there's a dirty. If you take a look at the recycle, that is exactly what the recycler view's name comes from. It says a view previously used to display data for a specific adapter position may be placed in a cache for later reuse to display the same type of data again later. This can improve the performance drastically by skipping layout inflation or construction. Let me get to this with a nice visual, which I have again made for the list view back then in the old days. Now I'll do the same for a recycler view to explain what this recycle process is all about. Again, if you take a look at the scrap part, it says child view that has entered a temporarily detached state during layout. The scrap views may be reused without becoming fully detached from the parent recycler view. So there's a lot of terms out here, and you guys are definitely wondering what is going on. Let's take a look at the first thing that we need to see, which is the layout manager. We can go here to recyclerview.layout manager, and it says a layout manager is responsible for measuring and positioning item views within a recycler view, as well as determining the policy for when to recycle items when they are no longer visible to the user. By default, a layout manager, the recycler view, can implement a vertical scrolling list, a grid, or a staggered grid, horizontally scrolling stuff as well. And there are several of them that are provided, which is exactly what the three of them, as you can see here. There's a linear layout manager, which is needed for making a list view. The staggered grid layout manager and the grid layout manager are basically for making grid views. So in other words, you won't even need grid views anymore. You can use the recycler view with a grid layout manager if you want to make a grid view in your code. Let's take a look at the linear layout manager, which is exactly what we need. It says recycler view implementation providing similar functionality to a list view. So now we are here to square one. So the whole idea behind building a recycler view comes down to taking care of two little things. The first item is something like this. If this is a single row inside your recycler view, you can clearly see that this is basically an image view, a text view, in fact two of them. So to display a row, you'll have to create a layout XML file and inflate that in code using a layout inflator. But doing layout inflator for every single row is expensive because layout inflator is basically going to take your XML file, it's going to parse it, it's going to generate a list of all the attributes, it's going to try to fit those attributes in Java by applying the right properties. As you can see, it gets big, right? And the third part is about how the items like text view, the image view are going to get values. At this point, after you perform the layout inflation in step 2, what you basically have is a reference to your layout file. But you need to find this text view, and this image view if you want to supply the proper values to them. And for that, you'll use the find a view by ID method if you guys remember. But doing this every time is again pretty expensive. So you want a way to avoid doing both of them each time, and that's exactly what this recycle word is all about when it comes to the recycler view. For example, a simple example would be something like this. The first time you create a row, there's basically a new view folder object created, which means the layout inflation is being performed and the find a view by ID methods are getting called for the first time. The second time you want to display an item on the screen, considering that this is the size of the screen that you have, again there may be a new view folder object created. For the third time, again it may be the new object created out there. But when you want to display one more item, at this point your first item is not going to be visible inside this rectangle small one anymore. It's going to go above the screen, which means you'll have to scroll up, right? And that is the point when your recycler view is going to actually generate a previously cached view object. That means the view holder which you created in the first three steps is going to be cached and it's going to be stored in the back, and it's going to be brought back to you for creating the fourth row that you see inside your recycler view. In other words, the simple idea is this: don't create a view holder object every time, don't call the find view by ID method every time. Do it only for a certain number of times till you're able to fit the screen initially, and then you can start reusing the items that you have. Now again, that depends on the layout, that depends on the type of the view, which we'll talk about when we talk about section recycler views in the upcoming videos. But this is the basic concept that exists for a recycler view, which is why the word recycling or recycler comes into the picture. So the two steps that you're going to use are something like this. First step, inflate the layout, initialize the view holder inside the method called on create view holder of your adapter. And then you're going to use the provided view holder inside this method called on bind view holder to supply the proper values. And in the next video, we're going to take a look at what the adapter is, what the on create view holder is, what the on bind view holder is, how does it work together, and how your screen finally looks when you use the right layout manager. At this point, if you run the app on your Android Studio, you're not going to see anything much. And in fact, if you run this, your app is going to crash and you're going to see this error saying null pointer exception, blah blah blah, attempt to invoke virtual method. The reason is the recycler view has no data, hence it doesn't know how to display itself, which is exactly what we are going to configure in the next video. In the meantime, if you like what you saw, please like this video, share this video, subscribe to Slide Nerd, and let us know your thoughts in the comment boxes below. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Have a nice day.